Are you feeling undermined at work? You can't really put your finger on it, but your gut is telling you something and it ain't good. Well, you're not alone. This can happen to us all. And in today's episode, I'm going to give you 4 powerful strategies to take the reins back right here on the Career Woman's Secret Playbook podcast.
Are you a strong, independent woman who's passionate about her career? Then this podcast is perfect for you. Based on her book, The Career Woman's Secret Playbook, career coach Dr. Dawn Hamby shares the kind of insider secrets you can only know if you've hired, fired, and promoted employees over the past 30 years.
Ladies, I'm on a mission to help busy women just like you create a career and life you love without sacrificing your work-life balance to get it. Come join me as we inspire and motivate each other only as women can and have lots of fun along the way.
With Dr. Dawn's tools, strategies, and action steps, you can unleash your personal and professional power in a whole new way. Here's today's episode.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Career Woman's Secret Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Dawn, and today we're tackling a tough but common problem. What to do when you feel that your staff or coworkers are undermining you. Whether it's subtle, passive-aggressive behavior, isn't that the worst? Or if it's outright sabotage. I don't really know which one is worse. They're both pretty bad, right? Either way, feeling undermined can definitely make you feel undervalued. And when you feel that way, it's going to erode your confidence and it's definitely going to affect your entire team. Now, before we dive into it all, let me first give a big shout out to our loyal listeners. Thank you guys so much for joining us each and every week. Your support means the world to us. Now, if you are new, I want you to get plugged in. So be sure to head over to our website at drdawnshoptalk.com for tons of free resources. That's basically a big thank you from us to you for listening today, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Alrighty, you ready to get into it? The first step is a pretty simple one. We're going to start by discovering whether or not you're truly being undermined. In other words, let's take a look at the warning signs and see if this is happening to you. For example, being undermined at work is usually pretty subtle. It can feel as if there's conversations that are happening that are not very complimentary towards your work. It could show up not just as negative talk, where it seems like it's behind your back, but it can also show up as either staff or coworkers simply not completing tasks that you had asked them to do, whether you're working on a project together or whether they actually report to you in the workplace. It could even show up as just feeling like someone is undercutting your authority in front of others. If any of those scenarios are happening right now, again, don't let this stress you out. You're not alone. That's what we're here for. We're going to help you realize you're not crazy. Don't let anyone gaslight you. We're in this together, okay? So now that you think you might have this problem, and if you don't, maybe you know someone who does, so be sure to send this episode to a dear friend because we don't want anyone to feel undermined at work. And again, it can really be pretty subtle. So keep your eye on things to make sure this is not happening to you. Now, if it is, again, I'm going to share 4 powerful strategies, and then I'm going to share how to actually implement those. All right, let's start with strategy number 1. Strategy number 1 is to stay calm and objective. Oh man, this is so hard to do, right? Because when you're feeling undermined, feelings are definitely going to get involved. I joked with my staff all the time, although it really kind of wasn't a joke because I felt this way. And what I mean by all that is this. I felt that if you were part of my inner circle, you better not mess with me or my peeps. In fact, this was such a strong concept that I would literally tell people, I will cut you if you mess with me or my people. And when I left that job, I know I've shared this story before, they actually had a plaque that said, I will cut you. And all of them signed it because they knew that I felt very passionately about having their back. Now, did that mean I never addressed the problem and just kind of let them do whatever? If there was an issue that was brought to me, would I address it with them and expect them to correct it? Well, of course I did. But it was kind of like how we are with family. It's kind of that scenario where I can talk to them. but you better not kind of thing, right? So that's how I ran my department. But there were times where I too felt undermined, and we'll get to that in a minute. But first, stay calm. Give yourself the 24-hour rule. Let's talk about that. So here are some tips on how to actually implement what I'm saying. It's easy to tell you today to stay calm and to be objective, but here's how to actually make that happen. All right, number one, I mentioned the 24-hour rule. If you need 24 hours or 48 hours before you address it, please take that time. That has always worked well for me because I need a minute to kind of, I don't know, pull back a little bit, assess the situation, maybe get some feedback from a mentor or friend. So give yourself some time to pull it all together before you address it. In the moment, if you need to step away, take some deep breathing, go outside for a quick walk to clear your head, remove yourself from the situation, and again, compose yourself. You are a powerful professional. Only people who are powerful in their own self-worth would take the time to listen to a podcast about an issue like this. So you obviously are invested in your own growth. So I don't want you to ruin all of that by letting emotions drive your decision making. The next thing I want you to do before we move on to strategy 2 is I want you to jot down some notes, maybe even create some talking points for when you're ready, and take a minute or two to do that. In fact, take a day or two if that's what you need. But in other words, you want to write things out. Just don't wait too long because you do want it to be fresh in your mind so that you're more than prepared for when you address it. Strategy number 2, I want you to have a direct conversation. Now, of course, I mentioned before, yes, talk to a mentor or a dear friend, talk to family, get some feedback. But the last thing you want to do is to talk about the problem with others. You want, notice I said direct, you want to have a direct conversation. That is so much more effective than going above that person's head and not speaking to them directly. Whenever my staff would have problems with one another, and you know that's going to happen. People are people. They have different personality dynamics and sometimes those clash. But I always ask those staff members of mine if they had spoken to that other person before they came to me. I didn't mind them coming to me to vent. Sometimes you just need to do that. But before I did anything else, I respectfully, but I did insist that they talk to that other person first before I intervened. So go ahead and do the same. It's not only effective, but it shows you to be, again, such a professional, handling things with grace and class. And who doesn't need a little bit of that, right? Now, here's how I want you to implement it. Number one, make sure you're focusing on the problem and not the person. Many times communication just goes awry. You really think you said things in a certain way, but they may not have received it that way. So they may not be undermining you at all. Maybe they really weren't clear that that was a task you wanted them to take on, and it wasn't something you were planning on doing. Now, are there times when they are actually flat out understanding you and they refuse to do it? Again, that's a bigger problem. It's still under the same umbrella of undermining you, whether it's purposeful or not. So regardless of the intention, the outcome is it's making you feel that way. So when you have this conversation, again, be direct, but be polite, be kind, give people the benefit of the doubt, make sure it's a private conversation, and use my 2-to-1 rule. The 2-to-1 rule is to always recognize at least 2 things that are going well between you and that other person. And then the last part of that is to bring up this one concern. So for example, when I've had to do this, I would normally start off by saying, we normally work so great together. In fact, we did such a great job on this project or that project. Or I'll bring up 2 qualities that I really think are awesome about that person and say things like, normally I can depend on you so well. Oh my gosh, we've worked wonderfully on these other projects in the past, and I really appreciate you so much and the hard work that you're doing. The one concern that I have, though, is this, because this has come to my attention, and if we don't get that resolved, or if I think it's just not being addressed, it's going to be easy for me to just presume the worst, feel undermined, and, I definitely don't want that. So one question I always would ask, by the way, in fact, this is my favorite question, when I'm addressing a problem like this, I would literally say to that person, so, in your opinion, how do you think we could collaborate better on this so that these misunderstandings don't continue to happen? Something along those lines. Of course, put it in your own words and be prepared for pushback. But again, keep the focus on resolving the problem. Don't presume that the intention was purposeful. However, that's what human resources is for. In other words, if the problem persists with no resolution, instead of getting more and more upset about it, just simply go to HR and ask for their feedback and their guidance way before you go to your superiors. Strategy number 3, I want you to strengthen your network of support. Man, when you have a circle of support, both in your professional life and personal life, isn't that wonderful? Here's something else that's wonderful. That is 100% up to you. In other words, who you surround yourself with is really in our own control. And as we get older, I think we forget that lesson. If you're a parent, you know that you probably have said this to your teenagers. You will warn them, please be careful with who you surround yourself with, because as they say, you become most like the 5 people that you have in your life consistently. So in other words, the 5 people in your life you're spending the most time with, both in your personal life and definitely in your professional life, you gravitate towards that person. Maybe it's healthy, maybe it's not healthy. In fact, in offices, you see this all the time. All the positive people get together, all the negative people get together, right? We kind of flock towards who we're the most like. Sometimes we are flocking to that opposites attract, but that's not always a positive thing. Okay, so really be aware of your own dynamic and who you're surrounding yourself with. If you're surrounding yourself with people who are pulling you down, we need a one-on-one coaching session, okay? Reach out to me. You need those healthy boundaries, both at work and at home. So just remember, it's important to have allies that really understand you and have your back, because there are times when unfortunately there are unhappy people at work that are trying to undermine you. When you go through all these steps, if nothing gets resolved again, that's why we're going to incorporate HR if we need to. But if you've got a strong enough circle of support, guess what? They're going to do the heavy lifting for you, because they're going to literally say, oh, no, you must have misunderstood that, because I've worked with Dawn for years and I'm sure that was not her intent. So again, if you've got that circle of support, they're going to help you out in that regard. You're going to be good to go. For example, I had a situation that was very concerning for me when I was a member of my senior management team. This is before I started my own company. You guys, I had such an amazing circle of support, because when you play your cards right, no matter what organization or company you're with, everybody really does see who the hard workers are. They really do. You can't take credit for someone else's work for long, because the truth always comes out. So I was in a situation where I felt that this person was not only a professional colleague that I loved working with, but a dear friend. And I felt very undermined. After I explored everything I'm telling you to explore today, I realized that they really were trying to literally kind of step over me to advance in the organization. Now, not in a good way, because I, in fact, was on this person's interview committee for their promotion. Once they got that promotion, that's kind of when things changed. Unfortunately, not everybody can handle leadership. Sometimes power really does go to someone's head, or their, I guess, perception that they're powerful. When you're truly powerful, you don't have to remind people all the time, right? And this person got to the point where they really thought they could undercut my authority right there at a senior leadership meeting. Now, I'm a positive person, but if I go silent, then you know you've overstepped your boundaries. As positive and as supportive as I am, I will not allow anyone to run over me or the people I care about. Now, again, I'm going to handle myself professionally, and I did. But when I stopped talking and looked at that person, you could feel the tension in that room. Now, I did that purposely. You might recall a couple of episodes ago, I talked about being a school teacher, and that back in the day, I understood very early on, if I had to raise my voice and yell at my students, I've already lost that battle. It's when you're quiet and you stop and you stand in your own power and you look at that person like they're crazy to have acted that way, that everybody else gets uncomfortable. So I already knew that. I knew that silence was where the power lies. not in over explaining myself. Now, I'm not running around trying to act like a dictator either. It's a balance between your own self worth and demanding that self respect because you're giving that respect in return. So you expect the same, right? Well, that meeting, I didn't have to say a word. People looked at him, looked at me. There was no other conversation about it. And when that meeting left, everybody kind of stayed behind, supported me. That person was basically iced out over the next couple of weeks, eventually came and apologized. And I appreciated that. It's hard to do that. It never was the same relationship. And I was fine with that because I wished him well. But when the trust is broken in that kind of way, I don't have time for that. I value my own free time so much and my time at work that I, again, want to surround myself with the right people. So I made the decision to cut off the friendship in the way it was before, but I was always respectful. I continued to work with that person. I just didn't incorporate that person in my other projects like I had before because I didn't have to. And it was healthier for me and for my folks in my department. So again, it worked out the way it should have, but as disappointing as it was, I was proud of myself because again, guys, you only have control over how you react to things. You're never going to control what the knuckleheads out there in the world do, but you can control how you rise up to face it. And always presume the best about that person. And I did for a long time. And I was very proud of that. I gave that person the benefit of the doubt, and I will never apologize for doing that for a friend or a colleague. I would always rather presume the best about that person, and I want you to do the same. But when they prove you wrong, and unfortunately that's going to happen from time to time, then again, tap into your personal and professional power and remember, you've got this. Now, another way to strengthen your relationships at work so that you do have that team to fall back on, make sure you're extending yourself. Go the extra mile for your colleagues. Make sure you're participating in team building activities if that's an option, or after work events. Again, if that's something that your company offers. Another thing that's wonderful is to put a regular lunch date on the calendar. So in our office, every single Friday was the one day a week that the whole office got together for lunch, and people came if and when they could. But we had a regular favorite pizza restaurant. It was Pizza Friday in our office. And you guys, it was so much fun. It had a beautiful patio, so we got to be outside a little bit. Getting together with your colleagues outside of the office will actually increase your productivity. You're out of the office, so you just get to know your colleagues in a different way. Getting away from the computer for like an hour or so is really going to help because again, you're just going to be more creative and innovative if you take a little bit of a break. The best companies realize that people do need to take some vacation time. They do need to reward employees. For example, there are all those health plan incentives where if you participate, they might end up giving you extra vacation days. I know our office had a health plan like that. So if I participated in it, I got extra vacation time. And it did include allowing us to exercise during the workday, which I thought was very forward thinking. Loved it. And for those of us that participated, we got an extra 3 days of vacation each and every year if we logged in all the information we had to participate. So again, things like that can really help strengthen the bonds you have at work so that when you are faced with a colleague who's trying to undermine you, your circle of support, they're going to have your back. You won't even have to lift a finger. Last but not least, strategy number 4, I want you to focus on the result and not the drama. Again, if you go back to that first strategy, we're going to be objective, right? We're going to be calm. So in strategy number 4, focus again on the result. In other words, focus on the problem, not the person, especially since we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt anyway. So here's how you do that. Keep your attention on completing the goal and overcoming the problem. Don't go back and forth with he said, she said. Again, that's the drama, and we don't want you to let that drag you down. Highlight your successes and your contribution to the team during meetings so everybody can see that you guys are moving forward. And make sure you include any kind of project updates. So again, you're keeping the focus on the work. And guys, when you do all that, guess what? The results are going to speak for themselves. And when that happens, it's going to reduce the chances of you ever getting undermined anyway. All right, you guys, I hope today's episode has inspired you to take action right now if you feel like you're being undermined in the workplace. Remember again that you always have the power on how you respond to certain situations. In fact, that's why you hear me at the end of every episode wrapping it up with our motto, which is this: if you're not having a fantastic day, you have the power to make it one. Why do I say that at the end of each and every episode? It's a quick reminder that we really are in control of our choices, not just how we react to certain situations, but again, who we surround ourselves with. And all of that really does determine whether or not we're going to choose to have a good day or not. Now, for more tips and strategies to help you navigate all of this, be sure to follow us on our socials at Dr. Dawn Shop Talk. In fact, we post weekly tips on Monday to help you have a better work week, and you can find that on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Thanks again, everyone, for joining me today. Don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with a friend. Tell that friend to tell a friend. Until next time, stay strong, stay focused, and keep showing up for yourself because you deserve it.
I know our episode is over, but this is just the beginning. If you're ready to take action but don't know where to start, just head over to drdawnshoptalk.com for lots of free resources, ways to work together, and for even more. Subscribe to the Dr. Dawn Shop Talk YouTube channel. Remember, ladies, you don't have to take this journey alone. I've got you covered. Till next time.